Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boys Andre here. Before I let you move on any further in this video, I just want to drop by and let you know with a quick disclaimer that we're not professionals. Now, if you're seeking professional help in regards to the topic, the conversation that we're having, please visit the links in the description below. And if you want to be a part of this movement of healing nations through transparency, the way you can help me do that is just by helping me beat the algorithm. Hit the like and the subscribe button. This will definitely tell the algorithm that this is a dope piece of content, and we'll be able to broaden the reach of the community in hopes that the nations get healed. And if you want to see more of these type of conversations here on out, hit the bell notification to select all. This will definitely let you know immediately as soon as I upload another video. But I'm not gonna hold you up anymore. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the video. Peace out, y'all. This is another series of healing through transparency, broken mend. The reason why I decided to start this series, truly, God gets the glory. He gave me this vision for it, and this is a question that's been roaming around for years. We've all heard it. Why are men dogs? Why are men this, that, and the third? It's because we're broken. We have a lot of broken men out here. And so my goal is to just spark the conversation and create the space, the safe space, really, so that these type of conversations could be normalized throughout other communities and homes and other things like that, and truly just to help other men heal. So everybody here tonight is just tuned in to learn more. So that's the approach that we're, taking this conversation kind of Q&A style. So you'll hear some voices. But yeah, so without further ado, I got my brother here, Dan, with me. I'm from Banner Brothers. What's up, bro? How are you?
What's going on, man? It's a pleasure to be here, bro. I am good. Excited. Honestly, I'm excited about tonight. Um, Grateful that God kind of put this on your heart just because it is a necessary, uh, all of it's necessary. It's all necessary. So I'm just excited, bro. Can't wait to hop into this.
Awesome, awesome. And I see we have another Banner brother in the room, Elijah. What's going on, bro? Are you coming on to speak tonight, or you just here to support?
What's good, bro? What's good, man? I'm uh I'm excited to hear, bro. I'm literally just walking back into the office, so forgive me. I'm trying to get settled, but I'm definitely here, definitely listening, man.
All right, cool. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you being here, bro.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome. All right. So yeah, man, let's get started on this topic. And so what? How do you feel about the term? Like a lot of women, you know, you just hear women talking about men are dogs, men are this. Like, why do you feel like there are so much broken men out here, and why they're not showing up to their roles?
Man, it's a variety of reasons, man, honestly. Um, I think overall we have to take into consideration a lack of you know a lack of like a definite way of manhood, what it looks like. A lot of times a lot of us come up, and that's what's kind of highlighted to us as a way of proving your manhood. Almost like, if I'll give a personal example, right? So in my family, on my dad's side,
Mm-hmm.
um I never seen the same woman consistently.
Mm,
So even if they weren't saying anything to me, I seen it as something that was like, okay, this is something that you do as a man, or something that you all will do, or that I'm supposed to take in, because I never seen um, the same woman continually. There was always different women here and there, and so I think that's a part of it, is just not understanding what what it means to have like an exclusive relationship with somebody and to build. I think that a lot of it too comes from broken places, as you're going to highlight, whether it's molestation, whether it's not getting enough love and attention from one parent or the other. um, and then, ultimately we have to, as a believer in Jesus Christ, I think we have to also take into the consideration the fact that we're in a broken world, and without that connection, there's chaos and confusion. And so we continue to just kind of repeat that cycle until we have an encounter in a way that shows us that there's a different path, and then we are able to have a different path. And so
mm,
unfortunately what ends up happening is, a lot of the women are the recipients of that broken manhood. Or you got immature men, so they're grown boys, if you will, versus a grown man. So you get that, you unfortunately you experience that. But we also have to understand too, like, it's not everybody. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
so unfortunately, one of the things that I always say, and not even just when it comes to like men being dogs or anything, like, it's more so like, unless we've been with all of them in whatever space it is, we can't put
Mhm.
such a blanket statement over everybody. The same way we don't like blanket statements addressing us individually when it comes to, whether it's a cultural thing, whether it's an individual
Right.
thing, whether it's a gender thing. We don't like those blanket statements. So I think we also have to be careful with the blanket statements as well.
Yeah, that's good, man. So, so you said you've had experience with a broken home. That's just, so you said you saw your father never having just one woman, right?
Yeah. So my background, coming up, I
Hmm.
was my mom and my dad wasn't married. So
Oh,
I
okay.
was raised by the majority of the women on my mom's side until my mom got married. I think I was like 10 or 11 when my mom got married. So before that happened, it was just the majority of my influence came from my mother's side. And then when I would see my dad and be around them, it wasn't it wasn't consistent enough. Um, and on top of that, it was it's something that I seen when I was even talking about like the different women and stuff. I see it generational
Mm,
because because outside of me, based off of what I firmly just talk about my encounter with God, I literally see it. Um, every single one of my first cousins, whether male or female, has children outside of the wedlock, and none of them have ever been married.
mm,
And it's a pattern, um, that we see from the generation before us.
right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, man. So like with these patterns, right? From what I discovered recently, patterns are like portals for familiar spirits. So a lot of people,
Yeah.
they're not so big on spirits. They just like kind of get creeped out by it. But so, um, we it's evidence that there's evil spirits out here in this world. So I think, well, I don't want to assume, but a lot of people in this room, I believe, would be, they're very well aware of these type of spirits, the evil spirits. So familiar spirits, really, just a quick nutshell. They're just principalities that are reigned over your bloodline through like trauma, just all negative things that you could think about. And I believe what you're describing would be one. Um, do you agree, or am I just like,
Oh yeah.
okay?
Absolutely, bro.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I've discovered it. So I've taken a an initial step, to kind of go over, kind of do research over my family and investigate
Mm,
my family
okay.
to see the different things that may have attached itself itself to our family generationally. And bro, the stuff that I have been able to kind of unearth with just like the help and the guidance of God, and asking the right people the right questions, I see it generations, like all over the place. It's been something that has lingered in some way, shape, or form, whether some people tried to cover it up,
Mm.
or it's been out in the open. So yeah, you're spot on with that, man.
So practically, like, how can a man um, discover that? How do men like, what was the practical steps that you took to start getting those questions out? How did you like how did the process start for you? What made you discover that? Like, okay, I need to start asking some questions because it's not making
Um,
sense.
I think the first thing was just being honest, not even
Mm.
trying to be like super deep here. So
Right.
on where my mom's side, once she got married and I got around that, or even before, around like 8 or 9 area, we got involved in a church that was deep into. They talked about deliverance. They talked about, just like the generational things, like curses and spirits and everything like that. So it began like it wasn't immediately. It's kind of like as I got older, I began to want to research and learn more about it. And then due to like uh different stuff like patterns that I would see would make me ask questions. So I just began to like be like, why is it that no man on my dad's side of the family has ever settled down? Why is it that on this side of the family, there's there's a lot of homosexuality that is undercover and nobody talks about?
Mm,
Um, uh, how come nobody is ever married on this side of the family, but people have been married on this side of the family? Um, why has like my mom's mom, my grandmother's side of the family, like I began to ask questions. So like, okay, so none of none of my none of so when I did the research on my mom's side, none of my aunts and uncles, for the exception of one pair, have like out of four, only one pair have the same dad, and there was only one marriage that was involved. So I'm asking myself all these questions, trying to figure out. So it really like to answer your question and like I'm trying to keep it as
mm,
practical as possible, is you have to begin to kind of like look yourself in the mirror and be aware of your surroundings and start asking questions like why do I do this, why do I do that, what am I seeing that may be triggering it, what am I seeing that that like what are the examples that I'm seeing that may have me on this path, you know what I'm saying? So
mm,
a great example would be even with what you were talking about as far as like why are men dogs, if you will. Well, if all I'm ever seeing from the people who I love and trust is a variety of different women coming in and out, and because I don't know any better as a child, or you look up to these people, immediately you want to be like those people though.
right.
So
Yep.
there's nobody in there to be like, oh, you're not supposed to be like these are the people who I love and who love me. Now, whether or not their love is from a broken skew or whatever we want to call it, the reality is these are the examples that have been set for me. And so when we determine what manhood looks like, we look at the people and the men who have been the most influential in our lives. And sometimes it's in our family and sometimes it's on TV.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
And that's
That's
just the
facts.
reality, man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's facts, bro. That's completely facts. Because I've seen my brother growing up. He's just had women in and out. You know what I'm saying? In and out all the time, and I would see the heartbreaks. You know what I'm saying? I'd see him get caught, and I'd seen the mess, and I'm just like, man, like why do you still go back and do the same thing over and over again? And so I just knew that I seen how it hurt women, and I
Mm-hmm.
valued women since I was a young, and so I was just like, hey, I can never. I grew up in a household of men that taught me how to not be like them. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I definitely can relate to that, man. So you said that you had discovered that some men in your family were dealing with some type of molestation. Um, you would is that what you're saying? Like you said that you dealt with, like some homosexuality or something like that.
Yeah, so I've seen it. So
Oh, okay, you've seen it.
so um so I can give you great examples. So even for me personally, my encounter with molestation came from within the family. They
Mm,
weren't adults, but they were older than me. So we're talking maybe like preteen teenagers. Um, so they came from within the family, and then like it was two separate situations. It was ones that was inside the family, then the situation that occurred with a neighbor who happened to be older than me.
mm,
Um, but as I and it really wasn't even until I was an adult, I started putting pieces together, and I seen on that specific side of my family, um, we have I have a cousin who has had an entire uh, sex change,
wow.
um, and they like made a big deal about it. But then having a conversation with my mom, what I realized is um, that person had well, we had an aunt and uncle that was older than them who who was openly gay that they just never talked about and they act like never existed.
Mm,
So once I find that out, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm
Yeah.
putting the pieces together. I'm beginning to see the trail. I'm beginning to see like, okay, this is something that is attached to this side of my family. Like
Mm.
it's not just a one, two, or three. Like, no, this is something that has been following this side of my family generationally at this point. And so and so as I recognize that and I'm trying to really um do the work to work through everything that has happened to me and take different steps of moving forward, and I'm asking questions, I begin like I'm seeing the fact that like, okay, this isn't necessarily a me thing, as in it's starting with me, but this is something that is connected to people that have the same DNA that I have, people
Mm.
who I look at as relatives, people who I've been connected to. It's a thing that has happened, and then sometimes what I believe, like even what happened with us as children, excuse me, sometimes it's just you're being exposed to something that you don't understand what you're being exposed to. So it becomes a reenactment of something that you've seen.
Right.
And so in a sense, some of it is innocent because you're just like, well, I seen these people do this, or I seen this person do that. And so because I've seen it, that's something that you begin to emulate.
Mm.
And sometimes we don't recognize it, and we don't understand that there can be either, and even traumas can cause it, whether it's something that we never realized. So one of my favorite shows is Criminal Minds. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why I like it is because sometimes what ends up happening is you see the root issue of where they started. And, it's not justifying it, but when you see certain stuff, I'll never forget there was an episode that I was like, and I know that some of those are based off of true stories. I don't care what they say, but,
Of
but,
course.
um,
Yeah.
but there was an episode specifically where this man was he was involved in like raping and molestation and things like that, and he
Mm.
kept painting their toenails, and it was like they were trying to figure it out. Well, at the end of the show, what they realized is his mom was a prostitute, and when he was a child, she would hide him under the bed, and all he ever seen was her feet every time it happened. So
That's
there
crazy.
was this connection that he made
Mm-hmm.
with that, you know what I'm saying, with
With the
everything
trauma.
that
Right.
transpired, yeah, with that trauma. And that began to be his view, right? So we wonder
Mm.
why certain things like abusive relationships and things like that, we're like, well, why would somebody stay in an abusive relationship?
Right.
Why
Right.
would you allow somebody to do that to you? Why would you do that to somebody else? Well, if I grow up and I hear my parent, whichever parent it is, say that you love this person or I love you, and then that's what's followed by the love, then I built this perspective of this is what love is.
Mm. Right. Perspective. Yep.
Yeah. And so now my perspective of love comes from, you don't love me unless you hit me, or I don't love you unless I hit you. You don't love me unless you talk to me this way, or I don't love you unless you talk to me this way.
Right. Right. So our parents or the people we look up to, the people in our environment affects our inner environment. So
Every
it's
single time, man.
every single time.
Every single time. Our environments is what create us.
Right.
And it's
Because
hard for us to
yeah.
escape it. Like that's one of the biggest things that we have to fight through is getting out of those environments, right? We talk about different cycles, whether it's in the hood or
Mm-hmm.
whatever community it is. But as somebody who grew up in the hood, it's a cycle that you continually see because that's all you're around. And I know for a
Yeah.
fact that I'm only where I am now based off of the fact that I was exposed to something more.
Mm.
And I was aware of the fact that this wasn't everything. But if I'm never exposed to anything different, and I never have an encounter with God first and foremost, and then I'm not exposed to anything, then I'll automatically just believe that this is what it is for my life, and
Yep.
this is how it's supposed to be. And then when I turn on the TV, it just reiterates what I'm already living.
Mm.
When I listen to certain music, it just reiterates what I'm already listening. I mean, what I'm already seeing and what I'm
Mm.
already living.
That's good. Yeah.
And so it's shaping and molding my environment. And it's a continual cycle that's being processed. So I'm continually listening to it over and over and over again. And I can give you a great example. So growing up for me, um, one of the things that because we were talking about the molestation piece. So for me,
Yep.
what it began to manifest itself as was I gotta prove that I'm not this way. I gotta prove that I'm not what happened to me.
Mm.
And so what happens to a lot of us is we either go in the complete opposite direction or we latch on to it, right?
Mm.
So some of us we just go straight into it and it's just like, okay, I've accepted that this is who I am, and I'm just going to keep going down this road based off of what happened to me. Then the other side is going to be, I'm going to prove to you, which the you is really me, right? I'm going to prove to you that this does not define me and this is not who I am. And so I go in this direction and I begin to overly sexualize situations. I begin to use relationships or the bedroom as a way of stamping my manhood and proving that I'm not what I've been through. Um, I begin to do these things that more than anything else, it's an internal battle of me trying to deal with something that had once happened to me, whether I'm leaning into it or leaning away from it. These are my responses to it.
Mm.
And so now I'm trying to get as many women as I want as I can possibly get, and be this in the bed and all this because I'm trying to prove a point.
Mm. To
But at the
yourself.
point that you're proving is to nobody else but yourself. Because the reality is this, Dre, and you know this, like most people don't even know what you've been through.
Right. Yep.
So
Facts.
it's not the voices of others, it's the internal voice and the voice of the enemy that's like, well, you know you this, you know you that. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? And then
Right.
you get in this internal battle with yourself of proving yourself wrong.
Ego and it's like ego and emotions just having an internal battle, bro. That's literally, literally all it is. That's crazy, man. Wow. And so it's interesting what a moment of trauma can rob you from your identity, and like you become like it just that's really all I can really say to that. Like it just robs you of your identity. Now you have like this internal battle because you don't even have people you can talk to about it as men. Because if we go to women, we come because we're stuck in this cycle. We're attracting other women who are stuck in the same type of cycles, and now they see us as dogs because they want us to show up as something that we're not. You know,
Yeah.
they want us to show up whole, but we're broken. We're both broken. Everybody's broken, and we're just having these broken relationships and broken intimacy, and it's just generational curses on generational curses and all this craziness, man. So wow, that was powerful. So moving forward, how can a man? Okay, so not even let's not even get to that part. Let's talk about women. What roles can women play um, for broken men? Whether that's brothers,
Uh,
friends.
I think
What?
the biggest thing would just be encouraging encouraging them to get help, encouraging us to do the work, and and honestly, I think one of the biggest things uh, that will protect them in the midst of it is understanding the reality versus the potential.
That's good.
So many times we can see what somebody can be because we hear their vision or we hear their heart and we see stuff. But if I'm not ready to change, there's
Mm.
nothing that anybody can do that will get me to that point. So the biggest thing is just, being encouraging and and just kind of like paying attention to the signs, and it works on both sides, right? I think naturally both sides want to be um either nurturers or fixers. And so what ends up happening is we cause more damage because we're trying, sometimes we try to help someone that doesn't want to be helped, and we're trying to fix somebody who don't want to be fixed, or they're not going to be fixed the way that you want them to be fixed. So we have to respect people's processes, right? So what worked for me may not necessarily work for you, which may not necessarily work for the other person. Like there's a truth that is in it, but the way the truth reaches us a lot of times is different. Even if we look at it from a salvation point of view, like all of us didn't get saved the same way.
Right. Yeah.
Like God met us uniquely where we were. And that's one of the things we got to highlight is like everybody's process is unique, and everybody's process is yeah, it's just unique. And I kind of want to touch on this because you said it earlier, and I think that's one of the things we have to be careful on both sides. Is you were talking about how it comes to take our identity. Well,
Yeah.
what some of us have done is that is now our identity. So when you're challenging me, you're challenging who I am and who I've
Mm,
become, and I'm not ready. And sometimes I'm not ready for that. Like I can't handle the fact that you're telling me that everything that I built my life on came from a hurt place, and now I need to change. Everybody's not
yeah.
ready for
Talk
that,
about it.
bro.
The foundation.
Like
Talk about it.
right, because
Yeah.
you've spent all this, and it's a process. It's a
Yeah.
process. And so for us, we have to be clear on um on where we are in our process and be able to communicate that to people.
Yeah.
So so one of the big, like I'll give you a great example that happened to me at a church, bro. Like
Wow.
it happened to me at a church. So I was I was on a relationship panel that I only got on because my pastor asked me to be on it,
Mm,
because I didn't want to be on it because I had an understanding of the work that I was trying to do to become whole. I had an understanding on building myself up and trying to get myself in order. So when we were on a panel, it was kind of like a dating game type situation, and we were on a panel, and the presenter asked a question. He was like, "If you were," and I mean this was a tough one, bro. He goes, "If we were to interview your previous ex, what would she say your biggest issue was?" And he wanted us to be honest about it.
wow.
And so because I had been really like introspective and everything like that and focusing on trying to get healthy and get whole, I was
Mm,
like, she would say that at times I'm at times I am emotionally unavailable due to what I've been through, right? So that's my answer.
mm-hmm.
And it's the realest answer I could possibly give, right?
Right.
So after it's all said and done, they doing like the whole voting thing, and there's a whole section. My number was two, a whole
Mm,
section saying number two. I'm puzzled, right? Because I'm like, I just told y'all that I've been working through because like this was my
so,
biggest issue, and it's something I needed to work on, right?
right.
Then a
Right.
lady comes up to me afterwards and says, literally, like she goes, "Man, you were really good, but you probably shouldn't tell people you're not emotionally available. That would help you out." What? What do you mean it would
Crazy.
help me out?
With what?
But now, so what you're telling me to do, right, is now you're
Mm,
telling me to be a deceiver. You're telling me to do what a lot of us have already done and puts women in these places where they're hurt because I'm not being open and honest with you from the beginning.
it's
I'm not
crazy.
telling you certain things. So if I come to you and I say I'm emotionally unavailable right now, so I'm not really like I don't need to be in a relationship. Like I think you're amazing, but because of where I'm at right now, this isn't a good idea.
Mm,
You have to respect that.
absolutely.
And that goes on both sides. Like we have to expect it. Um, I mean, we have to respect it
Right.
because because everybody's process is different. And sometimes, you know, sometimes we're trying to connect ourselves to something or someone at a time that we don't need to be connected to them,
Mm,
because God is still doing something in us. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
had I had been in that situation, or I had lied about it, now say she picks me and we get into a situation where I'm still like, she wants me to care and I can't care,
Hmm.
or she's
Right.
asking me to be more available emotionally and I don't know how to do that. And so we have to respect where people are, and be open to, you know what, not now, maybe not never, or maybe just not yet. You know what I'm saying? When it comes
For
to
real,
those
yeah.
relationships, like, we have to be
Yeah.
open to it and understand that for us as believers, God is protecting you from something.
Absolutely.
Like, don't force your hand in something, because that could be what God. So many times I've heard this from so many people, both married and in relationships, where it's like, when they take themselves out of the situation, they can look back and they see the sign. Well, when they
Mm,
said this, I should have just understood, or when they said that, it should have been a red flag. But what we tend to do is, oh, I can fix that, or it won't be that big of a deal. Like, they'll change. Reality versus potential.
that's so good, man. Reality versus potential. Love it. And so, I wanted to. I didn't want to piggyback I didn't want to go too far back into the conversation, but I really wanted to highlight how important identity is and self recovery in the identity
Mm-hmm.
process is. So I realized I didn't even talk much about my experience with molestation. So I was molested 4 times by the age of 9 from my cousins. Um, so usually it was just me. My parents would just drop me over because they didn't have, they needed to do whatever. I don't know. And so I would just be staying at my cousin's house. And so it happened in the house as playing video games. It's happened in me needing to take a shower. It's happened in me having to go home several times. And so the crazy part about it is that it's not just from I guess most people would assume that it's from a woman. But the crazy part about it is that it's been from both genders. I've experienced it from a male and from a woman, and so it was traumatizing. For a very long time, it was hard for me to understand why it was happening, because that was really the question. It's like I didn't even understand. I know that we're human. We have these sexual rages and all that other stuff, craziness. But I just couldn't understand why I was the one selected. You know what I'm saying? It's just like why am
Yeah.
I? Because it's like we have so many other people in the house. It was like about a 2 bedroom with about maybe 6 people. So it's just like out of 6 people, I'm the one. You know what I'm saying? So it was tough, man. Like even having to just go home every time, and then the mail would be like, "Yeah, let me drop him home," and I just would be like, "No, I don't want to. I don't want to go home with him." And it's just like, why? Nobody's. It's like nobody's asking why. Nobody's asking those questions. And
Yeah.
so when you get older, as you were saying, like you get into these relationships, it's kind of like you need to fill that void. You need to feel that manliness. You need to feel that type of so you start to abuse it. You start to abuse the other people. So the cycle just continues. And for a long time, it took me a while to realize that I was broken. We just was on autopilot. With most men are just on autopilot when you meet them.
Yeah.
You expect them to show up whole, and you're just meeting a man on autopilot who's just trying to find his identity because something happened at a young age. And I came across this quote that says, "People stop growing at the age of their trauma." And so for me, I was,
That's good.
for me,
That's
I was
really
about
good,
like,
bro. Yeah.
I was 9 years
Mm.
old and 16 years old in relationships, and you know what I'm saying. And it wasn't just to really, I'd be honest, till I was 23, and I started taking it really serious. And I'm 28 now. So, um, like you said, man, I think it's really important that women are not so pleased by potential, and they just really get real with the tangible. They need to ask some real questions. And I think these type of conversations really need to be normalized. I think it should be a safe space to just even for men to just even open up about these things more often, you know. And so, how did I recover? How did I find myself? I'm gonna keep it simple. The Bible. I don't think there's anything else out there that can hold any form of weight compared to the Bible when it comes to identity. You have to learn how to renew your mind, and when you start to see how God loves you, the sacrifice that was made for you, the value on your life, then you'll start to. That's really just the beginning, and it's a daily process. You got to continue reading the Bible. You got to continue understanding it. Um, Truthfully, the relationship with God is relational. It's not just a spirit type of thing. It's really personal. Um, and each and every one of us have different experiences with that with God, but it's at the same time it's all the same God. So you want to talk a little bit about your experience on how do you recover, learning who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I just want to touch on mine. So actually,
Yeah.
all of my encounters were males.
Wow.
So all of my encounters were males, and I was the youngest. So in all the situations, I realized I was the one who didn't know what was really going on, or the one who knew the least about what was going
Right.
on. Or it would be quote unquote called practice for
Yep.
when we get older, or when we get
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity to be with a female, or whatever the case may be. Um uh yeah. So my process. So my process started with Jesus. Hands down. It started with deliverance and inner healing. As my process continued, because there's a lot of stuff that had to be unearthed, right? So because of that, you have a because of that, I had a porn addiction, hypersexualized,
Yep.
um, everything like that. So I have to work. So God began to strategically place in my path, as I'm seeking Him, different things, and different Christian based things that would help me
Mm-hmm.
get through it. So things like Every Man's Battle, and grief recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and going to different small groups. And the small groups that I dealt with was stuff like Every Man's Battle, where it's people who are in a group together that's trying to overcome these wounds, whether it was healing the mother's womb, healing the father womb, emotionally healthy spirituality, um, just different Christian counselors, things like that. Just different tools that was given to me to not just continue to to embrace my deliverance, but also to continue it out, to walk it out. Because I think one of the myths that we have is that everybody will be delivered the same, and most of the
Mm-hmm.
time, deliverance is instantaneous, and that's not always the case. Like a great example that I heard a apostle talk about is, he was like, um, you didn't start smoking 3 packs a day when you first started.
Right. Absolutely.
You worked your way up to the 3 packs.
Mm-hmm.
So can you be delivered from the 3 packs in one day? Absolutely. It's happened
Right.
for people. It is possible. But for
Mm-hmm.
some of us, we have to go through the same process that we got there with. We have to go through the same way. So if you go from 3 packs to 2.5 to two to 1.5 to one to none, that's just as powerful as the instantaneous delivery.
Yep.
But we have to be open to our process, and we have to do better at helping people through their process, and not beating them up when it comes to the process, because that will discourage somebody and
Mm-hmm.
cause them their deliverance. And I say that because, like, there's a person who comes to mind, a musician that I know and I love dearly, who I pray for all the time, because he wanted he wanted to be free from uh delivered from his sexual, like him being overly sexual when it comes to women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one day he's sharing with me how, bro, it's been like it's been 2 weeks, man. Like, it's been 2 weeks, and he's excited about it. And I'm celebrating him. And then this just happens to be a woman, y'all. Then this woman comes over and she like tears him down about it because her experience was instantaneous. So
Mm,
she immediately goes from 2 weeks, you need to get to a year. You need to da 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 da. Like, yo, he is excited about his 2 weeks because he could never imagine it. For some people, what we have to
absolutely.
understand is how how they couldn't even fathom 2 days. Some people can't even count.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I was one of them people like, I'm not about to count a day. I'm not. You can ask me how long it was. Like, no,
Right.
like I got through this day, and that's how I kept it. Like, I
Yeah.
got through this day. If I look back and I happen to know how many months it was, or I happen to know how long it was, like, then cool. But if that's not the case, we have to understand the process that God does with people is different, and
Yep.
all the processes aren't the same. So, and I think we're great examples. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I
Absolutely.
had a more of an extensive process and different things that were involved. Um, with mine was, the Bible, Jesus, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
that
Right.
was my
Right.
process.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's one of the biggest things too, bro, is we just have to
Mm,
respect the processes and love people where they are and meet them where they are, and not be so quick to banish them or damn them or send them to hell because their process doesn't look like what we feel like it should look
absolutely, man. That was a beautiful response. Process is key, and like you said, the process is different for everybody. Um, and just to be transparent, like um, I'm now in a courtship with who God has revealed is my wife, right? And so I slipped into masturbation because of those traumas. Because to be real, like if we're talking about evil spirits, this is
like.
something
Yeah.
that, and this is bloodline spirits. You know what I'm saying? Because you said it was all male for you, and for me it was male and women. So I can imagine what they've experienced, who've done it to them prior before they did to me. So it's traveled, and so when I slip up, she was there as a safe space, and it was no condemnation. It was just love, and so it's like I think when we have that heart posture and just in people's processes, it helps for men to just be open as we're as open as I am right now in a whole room of strangers, really most strangers at least. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like even if you do say anything crazy right now, oh my God, you're just this that, I still have a safe space to go to. And a
Yeah.
lot of men, they can't show up that way because they don't have those space spaces. It's just like this is where they have the emotion and the ego battle in their minds. And so, yeah, man, I just love how you broke that down. The process is key. It's not. It is the Bible, yes, but then when you have safe spaces, you have actual people to help you. It helps a lot. So community is key. That's one advice I'd give to any man who's watching the replay. Um, and say you have any advice for some men out there that you want to leave off with.
I think more than anything, the key is starting off with like you are not what you've been through. Um, and so knowing that, like, that doesn't have to define you. Like, what happened to you um does not have to define you. I think that one of the things that we have to get back to, and this is how I kind of look at it, is, man, Genesis for me has been life changing when it comes to identity.
Mm,
And
yes.
when you understand, like, being created in the image and likeness of God and everything that went into creating humanity as a whole, and understanding that from that point on, God never changed his mind about what he wanted us to be
Mm-hmm.
and who he created us to be, then when it goes to asking, seeking, and knocking, and asking God to show you who you are, asking God to reveal who you are, asking God to help you through this, asking God for all of those things that that can help you, that God will answer. And the biggest encouragement is like, no, it may not be instantaneous. So you will, here you go, you will slip up, you will fall, you will,
Absolutely.
But this is the key. The key is always running back to the Father.
Amen.
Like, if the enemy can create separation from us, then he gets us out of our safe place. We kind of talked about this on the Band of Brothers.
Hmm.
You know, sin immediately caused man to hide from God. They both went and hid from God immediately, and God was still looking for them. So what it shows me is that especially on this side of it, is that when we're connected to Christ and what Christ did is the finished work, running back to the Father is the first thing we should do, and should be a no-brainer, because he loves us enough that he's not going, no good parent in the natural turns away their child when they're in pain.
Amen. Yep.
So how much more will God be there for us in the midst of everything that we're going through? So, man, that's my biggest encouragement. And also be open to getting help, be open to counseling, be open to seeking other ways and different steps of doing the work, so that like me and Dre, you can sit in front of some strangers at some point and be able to share what you've been through and how you're on the other side of it, or how you're working through it, because you understand who you are, and you understand that what happened to you does not define you. So you can
Absolutely.
walk in it and you can be in it and be okay with who you are.
Amen, man. That's I have nothing else to follow up with that, bro. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your transparency. And I just want to highlight some of the comments we have that came in. Natasha says very informative. Elijah, bro, he said Andre and Darius, thank y'all for having such a dope conversation. Y'all boys are solid for real, man. Appreciate you. Shauna said thank you guys for the transparency and knowledge, so potent. And Jayla says learned so much already. Thank you guys. Definitely thank you for being in tune and staying locked in throughout this whole conversation. We appreciate you. We love you guys. So guys, thank you. This wraps up first episode of the series for Healing Through Transparency. There's going to be more coming next week, Wednesday at the same time, 8:30 p.m. Forgot which one is we talking about, but check my Instagram posts or their emails for the flyer. And yeah, man, you guys have a great rest of your night. This was Healing Through Transparency. Peace out, y'all. God bless you.